The following is the procedure to hand clean Follett's Horizon Elite ice machine line. Always wear appropriate PPE. Follett recommends gloves and safety glasses when performing this procedure. Do not use power tools of any kind. Damage to system components will occur. Follett offers hand cleaning kits for all Horizon ice machine models. These kits include ice machine cleaner, scouring pads, sanding cloth, and optional hardware and seals in case of damage or loss of existing components. The tools and supplies we will be using today are Phillips and flathead screwdrivers, ratchet, extension, and 9/16 socket, a 3/16 hex tool, 120 grit sanding cloth, a Scotch-Brite pad, ice machine cleaner, gloves, a piece of cardboard or a towel, and a heat gun. Remove the 2 Phillips head screws from the bottom front quarters of the ice machine cover. Remove the cover. Locate and press the clean switch near the power button. The unit will flush and fill 3 times. This process ensures all of the ice is cleared out of the evaporator before disassembly. Please note it will take approximately 6 minutes for the low water light to illuminate. Units prior to serial number R03747 will only flush 1 time. Once the low water light is lit, you can power off the unit via the power switch. Locate the gear motor power wires on the right side of the motor. Carefully disconnect both supply wires and the ground. Remove the gear motor insulation. Identify the 2 screws holding the auger retainer in place. They are on the end of the auger. Using a 3/16 hex tool, remove the 2 auger retainer screws. Do not remove any of the black screws bordering the gear motor. Using a flathead screwdriver, pry the auger shaft forward and remove the auger retainer clip. Locate and remove the 2 9/16 gear motor bolts. Slide the gear motor forward and set aside. Take care not to drop the gear motor key. It may be stuck in the gear motor bearing after removal. Remove the insulation from the front of the main housing. Remove the water feed line from the John Guest fitting located atop the main housing. Depress the tube retainer and pull straight up on the water feed line. Remove the ice transport tube from the bulkhead of the docking station. This is the large black nut in the upper right-hand corner of the unit. The ice transport tube can stay attached to the main housing at this time. Remove the shuttle drain tube. Identify and carefully remove the bin signal switch from the shuttle assembly by sliding it off the 2 retainer pins. Take care not to snap the switch retainer pins off of the shuttle housing. Locate the 3 screws holding the main housing in place and remove with the 3/16 hex tool. Place cardboard or a protective towel on your workstation. The auger blade must not be damaged. Never place the auger directly on any surface, including tile floors, concrete, or stainless steel countertops. Carefully remove the main housing and auger. Take care not to damage the auger when removing. Please note the auger blade is very sharp and the assembly is heavy. Place the auger and main housing assembly on your workstation. Take care not to damage the porcelain journal on the rear of the auger. Rotate the main housing until the stream divider aligns with the auger flange cutout and carefully slide the main housing off the auger shaft. Take care not to damage the auger shaft seal inset in the main housing. Identify and remove the shuttle housing and wedge if applicable. The shuttle housing is held in place by 2 3-inch long Phillips head screws. Remove these screws and set the assembly aside. If equipped, remove the wedge via the 2 small Phillips head screws to access the compression nozzle. Identify the compression nozzle. This is the small stainless steel cylinder inside the upper section of the main housing. Remove and set aside for cleaning. Take care not to lose any O-rings during disassembly. Locate the water reservoir lid with 3 wires in the rear of the evaporator. The wires are black, orange, and yellow, and the lid is held in place by 4 Phillips head screws. Remove the vent tube from the water reservoir lid. Remove the feed wires from the fill solenoid. Remove the wiring and the 4 screws and set the lid aside. Locate the purge solenoid on the right rear section of the ice maker. Twist the solenoid coil counterclockwise and lift the coil off the valve body. Take note of the position of the Teflon washer atop the rubber diaphragm of the valve. This item must be properly placed upon reinstallation for the valve to operate correctly. Remove the plunger, diaphragm, and Teflon washer from the valve body and set aside. Visually inspect the auger, main housing, nozzle, evaporator, water sensing probes, and water reservoir, as well as the bushing housing, purge solenoid, and drain manifold. Please note, scale is invisible when wet. Any metallic components must be warm and dry before scaling will be evident. A heat gun can be used to facilitate this process. Take care not to damage any wiring, insulation, or other components when applying heat. As seen in the comparison, a cold, wet auger looks brand new and clean. It is only after drying and warming of the component that the scale becomes evident. Proper cleaning of the unit's internal components is critical to the operation. The auger finish must remain polished. Therefore, you cannot use anything more abrasive than Scotch-Brite to remove scale on the auger. The evaporator is comprised of 2 sections. The front 2 inches of the evaporator has a highly polished surface, and care should be taken not to modify this finish. The front 2 inches of the evaporator must be cleaned with Scotch-Brite. The remainder of the evaporator should be scratched to promote ice adhesion during operation. This section should be cleaned with a 120 grit open mesh sanding cloth. Water sensing probes attached to the reservoir lid are made of stainless steel and can be cleaned with sanding cloth. Mix a small amount of ice machine cleaner with hot water in a cup or suitable container. Gloves should be worn for this process. Once the auger is warm and dry, use a Scotch-Brite pad dipped in ice machine cleaner to remove all scale present and polish the auger. Pay special attention to the scallop of the auger blade. Do not use sanding cloth on the auger. Irreversible damage will occur. After the auger has been cleaned, it must again be dried for inspection. As seen, there is still residual scale present and the process must be repeated. Continue this process until all scale has been removed from the entire auger. Inspect the evaporator for scale. It may be necessary to allow time for the evaporator to become warm and fully dry. A heat gun can be used to facilitate this. When using a heat gun to dry the evaporator, place a wet rag in the rear of the evaporator to protect the black bushing housing when applying heat. Take care not to damage any components, including the insulation and bushing housing in the rear of the evaporator. As seen, scale has formed on the interior of the evaporator and must be removed. Identify the highly polished section at the front 2 inches of the evaporator. By design, this section has a different finish than the rest of the evaporator, and care must be taken not to alter it. Clean the front 2 inches of the evaporator with Scotch-Brite dipped in ice machine cleaner. The remainder of the evaporator can be cleaned with sanding cloth. Using an in and out motion, fully sand the remainder of the evaporator wall. Take care not to sand the front 2-inch highly polished surface. When done properly, the evaporator should be full of scratches and shiny. Take a cloth and wipe the entirety of the evaporator and again allow it to dry. Repeat these steps until all scale has been removed from the evaporator wall. Visually inspect the stainless steel probes of the water reservoir lid. As seen, both the plastic lid and the stainless steel probes are scaled. Using sanding cloth, gently sand any built-up scale from the probes. Using Scotch-Brite, clean the underside of the lid. Pay close attention to the area between the probes and ensure no scale is present. Inspect the compression nozzle for scaling. Clean with Scotch-Brite as necessary to remove scale. Do not use sanding cloth on the compression nozzle. Irreversible damage will occur. Inspect the water reservoir for signs of scale. Clean any scale with Scotch-Brite dipped in ice machine cleaner. Inspect the silicone tubing leading from the ice maker into the drain manifold. If scaled, the tube can be cleaned. Inspect the bushing housing in the rear of the evaporator. If scale is present, it may be necessary to remove the bushing housing for cleaning. If needed, see the bushing housing and scale kit video located in the service video library at follettice.com. Inspect the PVC drain manifold for clogs due to scale. If the PVC is restricted, replacement is necessary. Once all components have been cleaned and no scale is present, the ice machine can be reassembled. After reassembly, the unit must be run through a chemical cleaning to remove any residual scale or residue left behind, as well as sanitize the system. Beginning with the main housing, install both the compression nozzle and its O-ring. Reinstall the wedge if applicable. Reinstall the shuttle housing and tighten the two 3-inch screws until no gap is present where the black plastic shuttle meets the wedge. Install the main housing back onto the auger by aligning the stream divider with the auger flange, taking care not to damage the porcelain seal inset into the main housing. Once seated, press down firmly and rotate the main housing 180 degrees to properly align the stream divider with the flange. Reinstall the water reservoir lid with the 4 Phillips head screws. Reinstall the wiring for the water sensing probes. Black, orange, yellow, in order from left to right. Reinstall the vent tube. Plug in the water feed solenoid. Install the auger main housing assembly back into the evaporator. Reinstall the 3 screws holding the main housing in place using the 3/16 hex tool. Carefully install the bin signal switch onto the mounting posts and ensure the switch is fully seated with the red button below the metal tab. Reinstall the shuttle drain tube. Attach the ice transport tube back to the bulkhead in the upper right area of the ice maker. Ensure the threads of the black nut are not crossed and hand tighten fully. Place the water feed tube back into the John Guest fitting atop the main housing. Ensure the tubing is fully seated. It should press in roughly 1 inch and not be able to be pulled out. Replace the insulation over the main housing. Lubricate the exposed auger shaft before installing the gear motor with food-safe grease. Replace the gear motor. Align the gear motor keyholes on both the auger and the gear motor and install the key. Install the 2 9/16 bolts and tighten with a ratchet. Using a flathead screwdriver, pry the auger shaft outwards and install the auger retaining clip. Install the 2 screws in the end of the auger with the 3/16 hex tool. Reconnect the gear motor ground and feed wires. Replace the gear motor insulation. Reassemble the purge solenoid. Be sure the Teflon seal is in place atop the diaphragm. Attach the solenoid coil by aligning the mounting clips with the body and twisting clockwise. Perform a standard chemical cleaning and sanitizing as outlined in the manual. Reinstall the front cover. Reinstall the front cover screws.